and welcome to the news from Bahrain Television. The commander of the Royal Guard, Staff Colonel His Highness Sheikh Nasser bin Hamad Al Khalifa, discussed in Tokyo ways of cooperation with Japan during his meeting with the Chief of Joint Staff of Japan's Self-Defense Forces, Shiojiro Awasaki, within the framework of his official visit to Japan. The two sides discussed ways of joint cooperation between the two countries and the development of joint projects in the next phase. His Highness Sheikh Nasser bin Hamad Al Khalifa paid a visit to the headquarters of the Self-Defense Forces and was briefed on the workflow and programs. He also pointed out to the bilateral relations between the two countries and the recent developments under the guidance of the leaders of the two countries. The Chief of Staff of the Japanese Self-Defense Forces explained the roles and responsibilities played by the forces. His Highness Sheikh Nasser exchanged commemorative gifts with the Chief of Staff of the Japanese Self-Defense Forces. The meeting was attended by Colonel Khalid Abdurrahman bin Hindi from the Directorate of Planning, Development and Information Technology and the Office Director of His Highness, the Commander of the Royal Guard, Captain Khalid Abdel Aziz Al Ajman. The Chairman of the Supreme Council for Youth and Sports and the President of the Bahrain Olympic Committee, His Highness Sheikh Nasser bin Hamad Al Khalifa, met in Tokyo with Masuki Mori, the Minister responsible for Youth Affairs and Sports, and Minister of State for Consumer Affairs and Food Safety, the Minister of State for Measures for the Declining of Birth Rate, and the Minister of State for Gender Equality. His Highness Sheikh Nasser underlined the importance of peace between the youth of the world and the message of the Kingdom of Bahrain on the need to disseminate this aspect in all programs and activities of the Bahraini youth in the world. He also reviewed the prospects of enhancing cooperation between the two countries in the field of youth and sports and social affairs and the possibility of exchanging expertise in these added areas. His Highness added that the Kingdom of Bahrain and the directives of the leadership working to highlight Bahrain's youth in all areas and participation in different global programs. He congratulated Japan for winning the organization of the 2020 Olympic Games. For her part, the Japanese minister said she is pleased with the cooperation between Bahrain and Japan in the field of youth and sports and praised the programs for the Ship of World Youth during its visit to Bahrain. His Highness Sheikh Nasser briefed the Japanese minister on the programs offered by the various parties for youth and sports. The meeting was attended by Bahrain's ambassador to Japan, Dr. Khalil Hassan, the president of the General Organization for Youth and Sports, Mr. Hisham Al-Jawdar, and Abdullah Zain, the director of the private office. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sheikh Khalid bin Ahmed bin Mohammed Al Khalifa, yesterday led his GCC counterparts in a meeting with the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and the Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel on the sidelines of the 68th session of the UN General Assembly. The meeting, which came within the framework of the GCC-US Strategic Cooperation Forum, discussed key security issues, stepping up regional cooperation and upgrading the capabilities of the Bahrain-based Naval Operations Center for the sake of security and stability in the Arabian Gulf region, which took center stage in the discussions. The ministers discussed key regional and international issues of mutual concern, particularly the current developments in Syria. At the conclusion of the meeting, they issued the final joint statement of the Third Strategic Cooperation Forum, affirming the fundamental pillars of the GCC-US relations in confronting regional challenges and addressing security and political issues of concern to both parties. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sheikh Khalid bin Ahmed bin Mohammed Al Khalifa, participated in the Syria Friends Ministerial Meeting, which was held alongside the 68th UN General Assembly meeting in New York on the 26th of September 2013. The participants discussed the latest developments on the Syrian dossier and the importance of Geneva II conference to take into consideration the aspirations of the Syrian people towards a political solution that would stop bloodshed and focusing on dialogue for the purpose of forming a transitional government that should be agreed upon by all the parties in support of security and stability in the Middle East region. The participants affirmed on their support to the national coalition and the Syrian opposition as the legitimate representative of the people of Syria. The meeting called for an end to the Syrian people's suffering and to come up with a political solution for the crisis. During the meeting, the use of chemical weapon was also condemned. The coalition expressed its willingness to cooperate with the United Nations and the Organization for Ban of the Chemical Weapons, underlining at the same time the need to provide the Syrian people with humanitarian aid. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sheikh Khalid bin Ahmed bin Mohammed Al Khalifa, met at the United Nations headquarters with Iraq's Foreign Minister Hoshier Zebari. The meeting comes alongside the 68th UN General Assembly meeting in New York on the 26th of September, which discussed the meeting issues of common concern and the latest developments on regional and international arenas, as well as items on the UN General Assembly agenda. The meeting also shed light on the bilateral relations between Bahrain and Iraq and the means of bolstering them for the interest of the people of the two countries. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sheikh Khalid bin Ahmed bin Mohammed Al Khalifa, met at the UN headquarters with Georgia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Maria Panyakadze. The meeting comes alongside the 68th UN General Assembly meeting in New York on the 28th of the month. The meeting discussed the bilateral relations between the two countries, issues of common concern, and the latest developments on the regional and international arenas. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sheikh Khalid bin Ahmed bin Mohammed Al Khalifa, also met at the UN headquarters with New Zealand's Foreign Minister Murray McCully. The two sides discussed regional and international issues as well as topics on the UN General Assembly. The two sides affirmed continuing consultation and coordination between them and also lauded the fine relations linking their countries, underlining their keen desire to enhance cultural and economic relations between Bahrain and New Zealand. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sheikh Khalid bin Ahmed bin Mohammed Al Khalifa, met at the UN headquarters with Senegal's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Nankouer Ndiaye. The meeting comes alongside the 68th UN General Assembly meeting in New York. The meeting discussed issues of common concern and the latest developments on regional and international arenas. Sheikh Khalid voiced Bahrain's recognition to Senegal's efforts during its presidency of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, as well as its role within the Arab-African framework of cooperation, which focuses on the interest of the Arab African states. This is in addition to Senegal's stance towards the Palestinian issue. And the Foreign Minister met yesterday with Belgium's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, Didier Reynders, on the sidelines of the 68th session of the UN General Assembly. The two sides signed a memorandum of understanding to promote political consultation between the Ministries of Foreign Affairs in the two countries. They also agreed to back their countries' respective nominees to the UN agencies and other international organizations. The meeting reviewed the relations of friendship and cooperation between Bahrain and Belgium and the ways of bolstering bilateral ties further. The latest developments of the Syrian crisis and key issues listed on the agenda of the 68th session of the UN General Assembly were also discussed. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sheikh Khalid bin Ahmed bin Mohammed Al Khalifa, also met in New York with the Foreign Minister of Malta, George Vella. The two sides signed a memorandum of understanding to promote political consultation between the Ministries of Foreign Affairs in the two countries. Sheikh Khalid bin Ahmed and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Malta agreed to back their countries' respective nominees to the UN General Agencies and other international organizations. The meeting also reviewed the relations of friendship and cooperation, as well as key issues listed on the agenda of the 68th session of the UN General Assembly. Under the chairmanship of the Foreign Minister, the GCC states held a meeting with Japan's Foreign Minister, Fumio Kishida. During the meeting, they reviewed the prospects of enhancing the Gulf-Japanese relations in light of the Gulf openness on the Asian experience for its positive impact on strengthening the partnership at all levels, including the opportunities for investments between the two sides to diversify their economies. The two sides also discussed the importance of activating strategic dialogue between them and to consider the resumption of trade negotiations on free trade agreement. They also reviewed the latest regional and international developments. And the Foreign Minister also presided over a meeting between the GCC foreign ministers and the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. The Foreign Minister underlined the historic ties linking Bahrain with Russia, which plays a major role in international peace and security. The minister expressed his aspiration for an exchange of views with the Russian minister, especially on the Syrian crisis and successive developments, stressing the importance of reaching a comprehensive solution to achieve the hopes and aspirations of the Syrian people. He also stressed the importance of Russia's role in order to reach a peaceful solution to the crisis.